Welcome to the One Advantage podcast, exploring the intersections of peer power, culture, and agility. Your hosts, Mike Richardson, Jason Richmond, and Leo Bottari, co-founders of the One Advantage community of practice and advantage peer groups. For more information, please visit us at the One Advantage podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the One Advantage podcast, and we've got myself and Jason this week. No, Leo, he is off all over the place once again. No doubt we'll hear all about it next time that we catch up with him. But hey, Jason, how are you today?
I'm fabulous, Mike. How about yourself? I know you're working hard, planning for a big 3-day off-site coming up soon, and I just had an opportunity. I just got back late last night from the Windy City. I spent a few days in Chicago working with clients on really about what we're talking about today. How in the world do we lead our people differently now that they're in hybrid workforces? Yeah,
beautiful. That's what we're going to be talking about today, everybody. Leading differently. What are the new demands upon you as a leader? You know, we've all talked about this idea that we're in a new normal post-COVID, in particular, of course. But you know what? It would have been a new normal without COVID because the pace of change is such these days that, you know, this year bears no resemblance to last year, increasingly so. And the new normal is asking new questions of leaders for which they need new answers. Old answers increasingly don't work well anymore. Employees in particular are asking you new questions of your leadership and what's it got to take for you to step up to those new demands and lead onwards and upwards from here. So Windy City, one of my favorite places. Jason, you were working with a client on all this kind of stuff, and I'm under the hammer getting ready for a 3-day offsite with about 24 people, actually at the St. Regis in Park City. So it's going to be a beautiful venue, and got a whole bunch of stuff to take up there to make it a very special event. So I'm actually driving up Saturday and driving back Wednesday, and we're looking forward to a really exciting event. And indeed, as you said, we will be talking in depth about what does leadership look like these days, and in particular, how do we facilitate leaders going on that next phase of their learning curve to raise their game to the next level. Tell me more about some of the work that you were doing with your client around that kind of stuff.
Well, you know, one of the topics and one of the things we're working through with leadership teams right now is you know, from a hybrid workforce, you know, how much is the organization getting from our employees? Right? Are they still have a high level of commitment? Are they doing just what they have to? Are they multitasking in their careers and doing multiple things? Right. So I'm trying to identify that. And we really worked on what I call, you know, helping leaders gather their teams together and create what we call a credo statement. And Mike, this is so fascinating because it really gets into the hearts of minds of the people you lead. And it's all about getting your organization, your team, right? Your group of direct reports, and then this can spread through an organization, and trying to get a simple answer of what motivates us to do this work.
I love that.
And that is a huge question that every organization, even from our last podcast, when we talked about the different personas, right, of the recruiting pools of the employees that are available to come to work, you know, understanding what motivates them is really a kingpin. So we titled it the credo statement, and we've been working with leaders in this organization on how to gather their team together and collaboratively, you know, create that credo statement and really gain a true understanding of what is motivating individuals today to actually do the work they're doing.
Yeah. And, you know, I love that. And what comes up for me there, everybody, is that one of the questions that we're being asked as leaders is how do we go to a next place around trust?
Yeah.
Because if you are dealing with more and more of your team that are not just down the hallway, they're working remotely, they're working hybridly, perhaps even some of them don't work for you, they're subcontractors, they're gig workers, they're freelancers, etc.
Yep.
How do you take the concept, the equation, the formula for trust to a next level, because your old formula for trust, where you could walk down the hallway and sort of kick the tires and look over somebody's shoulder, at least see that they were at their desk and they were head down, is no longer available to you in the same mode. And, if you stay at an old level of trust and you try to micromanage your way to that quiet confidence you need, that everybody's working hard, it's going to be counterproductive. And so how do you take trust to the next level around credo, around core values, around behavioral norms, around engagement, or all of that kind of stuff? Does that resonate with you, Jason?
Yeah, I have a one-word answer for that for all leaders and managers out there. And we spent 3 hours talking about this last week with a group of 18 mid-level managers. And the word we came up with is vulnerability.
Tell us more.
Well, what that means is, from a leadership standpoint, to gain that level of trust, to gain that level of commitment, to gain that level of motivation from your hybrid workforces, and not just hybrid, but even in the office. A leader has to, one of the expectations of leadership that has changed is for the leader themselves to demonstrate and show a little vulnerability to their people.
Yeah, I love that. And other words, I'm sure, that were in the same melting pot are words like humility, everybody, authenticity, transparency, versus, often the opposite, right? If we're not careful, especially if we're feeling a need to micromanage people, to be able to trust that they're working hard, if we're not careful, there's some ego coming through. There's some posturing coming through. There's some opaqueness coming through. And we need the exact opposite on steroids these days to lead through the next phase.
Yeah, one thing that has been coming up continuously in the last couple of months with the work I'm doing with clients is problem solving. And Mike, you're a master. You're subject matter experts in VUCA and the world of Agile leadership and dealing with VUCA, and we've really worked hard to work with leaders on how to look at challenging situations or problems in a different way than they've ever had to look at them before. They have to, especially if they can't see it, if they can't visually see it in the office, the way they probe into situations, the way the way their senses work, the way they respond to people involved in challenging situations or in problem solving has completely changed. Leaders today have to be a lot better or be more comfortable with probing and discovering more than they ever have before, because they can't see it as much.
I love that. And therefore, the sort of the master problem, the meta problem, or let's stay with the meta question, right? The sort of question of all questions, the problem of all problems is how are you going to future-proof yourself? Because the future is coming at you thicker and faster than ever before, laced with this stuff we call VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And as Jason was just saying, one of the reasons you can't see it is because of the fog of war. It's all happening so fast and so ambiguously that the fog descends and you just can't see through it. And so how are you as leaders going to lean into that and see through it? And that begs the opposite question. Earlier, we were saying there's a sort of next level question of how do you develop trust with your people, in your people? And actually, there's the mirror image question. And how do you engender their trust in you that you can lead them through this fog bank to a bigger, better future for all concerned? And how can they have quiet confidence that you as a leader are someone to be followed with quiet, cool, calm, collected composure, that no matter what, we can figure it out? That is a completely higher order question that's being asked of leaders these days, Jason.
I agree. I mean, leaders today in the world we live in need to wear several hats. I mean, if you look at yourself as and I'm not talking about management, I'm talking about leadership.
Yeah.
A true leader has to play the role of a questioner. A true leader has to take the role of a conversationalist.
Yeah.
Right. A true leader has to take the role of a prioritization person.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They've got so many more roles that they have to pay attention to in order to really have their team produce organizational results and team results. And they've got to be aware of those types of roles and where they got to get comfortable with.
Yeah, and they're I'm sure you'd agree with this. It's not like, oh, we're adding new roles onto your the long list of roles you've already got. It's
correct.
That we're seeing your roles through new lenses. And, leaders have always been custodians of strategy and execution and productivity and culture and goal setting. And traction, right? Traction on our desired trajectory. The challenge is, everybody, that in an increasingly accelerating VUCA world, the nature of that challenge has changed, and it is now a challenge laced with chaos. And how do you develop the skills to be operating in organized chaos, not disorganized chaos? And the secret to that is leading forward to the most acute form of priority management, time management, focus management, attention management, productivity management there is, which is called triage. And learning how to triage so that you engender the confidence of your people. And the challenge, Jason, is that most people have never had any training in triage or training in chaos. And so if they're not careful, they're a little lost. They can't see the forest for the trees, and they're just working as hard and as fast as they can, and they're trying to survive. But that's not the kind of leadership being asked of you these days. What do you think?
No, it goes to a call I just finished this morning with a client. We have a weekly call, Mike, and it's at any given time we probably have 8 to 12 different projects within their organization going. All different business units, all different silos, but we work with one central team.
Yep.
And every week it's a triage activity with their team and our team, figuring out exactly that. What's priorities? What's first? What comes first? How does that impact the other things? Yep. And we spend an hour every week doing exactly what you're talking about. And that's just about the current existing projects that we have on our plate right now with this organization. Yeah. But I got to tell you, by taking that activity, we don't have any conflict. We don't have any business surprises. Yeah. We don't have anything falling through the cracks. And we actually, projects and initiatives get done on time with great results.
Yeah.
Right? But it's that triage activity that misses, like you're talking about, keeping your hand on it. And that kind of goes with Agile, but short Scrum, burst meetings.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And just staying on track.
Yeah. And that's why everybody, Jason knows this, my work has really distilled down to, obviously there's a huge body of work around everything agility. But if you sort of cut through the complexity and you cut through the hype and you focus on the leadership element of it, I've distilled it down to what I call the 5 roles of everyday Agile leaders. And these kinds of everyday activities that Jason is referring to, daily scrums, weekly scrums, how do you get in the cadence, get in the rhythm, get in the flow of showing up as an Agile leader every day, able to operate in organized chaos, full triage, learning from foresight, not from hindsight. Gosh, how often do we learn from hindsight in business? And it's hideously expensive if we're not careful. And then when we look at ourselves in the mirror, we realize, gosh, you know what? If we just worked a bit harder, a bit smarter, a bit more productively, we might have learned that from foresight and not hindsight a lot less expensively. So yeah, these are all new questions, everybody, being asked of you as leaders, for which you need next level answers. Next level questions require next level answers. Yeah. What other questions come up for you, Jason, of sort of the next level questions being asked of leaders, would you say?
One of the big next level questions that are being asked of leaders is understanding the business and the organization outside your discipline.
Yeah.
So a month ago, I was working with one of our clients, and we had four different business silos in the room, leaders from four business silos.
Yeah.
And I started out the engagement by breaking them up in their own discipline. And the question I asked is what organizational, what business challenges, are you having? Well, what are you tackling right now today, and what are you tackling tomorrow when you're not in this room? And if you talk to everyone individually, they feel like they're pretty unique.
Yep.
Right. And I've got my own set of challenges. 80% of the debrief and the conversation and the focus points, the challenges and things were exactly the same in each business unit.
Yeah, exactly.
And very few of them actually talk to each other.
Yeah. And so I love what Jason's saying here, everybody. I think what you're saying, Jason, if you forgive me for sort of putting words in your mouth, is the next level question, everybody, of leaders is, how are you going to address your role more systemically and more holistically, more horizontally across the whole business, not just your vertical? And, listening to you there, Jason, what comes up for me is only yesterday we started posting about an event that we're doing in Miami towards the end of September, where the overriding theme that I'll be speaking about is collective intelligence. And this 3-day retreat that I'm going on this weekend up at Park City is with the same organization, where again, the whole 3 days are focused around the concept of collective intelligence. And how do you raise your game, everybody, as a leader in your organization, in your system, left to right, front to back, top to bottom, bottom to top, system wide? How do you raise your game to truly tap into the collective intelligence of everybody that you've got? If we're not careful, we're not being collectively intelligent at all. We're being collectively dumb, because we're not having these cross-functional, silo-busting, horizontal conversation flows that we need to be having. And I don't know any businesses, Jason, where if you just maximize the parts, you optimize the whole. I don't know any businesses like that. In fact, that is a term in system thinking, that if you maximize the parts, you sub-optimize the whole. And every executive, every manager needs to be an executive first, not a functional leader first, a member of the executive horizontal team first, and a functional leader second, stepping up to the systemic performance of the overall business and the overall organization. What do you think, Jason?
Well, I mean, put that in a sports analogy or an example.
Yeah.
You can have an absolute team of superstars that are just unbelievable individual performers, but you put them on the same court, the same arena, the same field, right? That doesn't mean they're going to function well as a team and be successful.
And if you insist on talking about soccer, I'm happy to talk about soccer. And of course, I'm not sure how many of our listeners watch the English Premier League. I'm sure some of them do. But of course, the classic example of that currently is Manchester United, who used to be the top of the top of the top. And then when that manager left, Ferguson left, which is what? I don't know. It's like 6 or 8 or 10 years ago already. They've done nothing since, and they've got the stars, and they've got the star of all stars. They've got Cristiano Ronaldo, and they still can't get it to work. Maybe there were some signs of hope in the last game they just had. But you're exactly right, everybody. The next level question being asked of you as a leader is, how are you going to get your A individuals to work as an A team more than ever before? Because if you're a B team, VUCA is going to eat your lunch probably bigger, faster, sooner than you think.
Yep. The last challenge I see, and I've been working with leadership groups a lot about this. How do you tap into your teams in a hybrid or remote workforce to really identify those hidden assets? I guarantee any leader out there, if you evaluated your team, at some place you're under valuing or underestimating the performance and value that key team members can bring to the table.
I love that.
Right.
I love that.
And it's your job. It's our role as a leader.
Yeah.
To identify and tap into those things. It's not the individual contributor's role to try to bring that and sell you on that. We as a leader need to tap into those hidden assets and bring them to the forefront.
Yeah. One of my favorite things to say when I'm on stage or speaking or even coaching is and I'm sure you agree, I fundamentally believe everybody, including Jason and I, everybody is bigger on the inside than they seem on the outside, and a leader's job is to bring that bigness out.
Yep.
That's what we're about. The capability and capacity of your team individually, and of course, even more so collectively, is probably much bigger than your comprehension. And the key is how do you tap into it in the face of craziness, right? Yeah. It's a crazy, topsy-turvy, turbulent world. And so another question for you all, everybody, is I like to go to this place of composure, right? And composure is quite a holistic concept. What does it take to remain cool, calm, collected, and confident in the face of craziness? In other words, stay composed, stay present, stay, standing firm and engaged, and, keeping your head while all around you are losing theirs, as Colin Powell used to say. And then another of my favorite speakers, James Newton, says, leadership's about being a non-anxious presence in an anxious system. Yeah. And how many of our business systems, our organizations, our enterprises, our executive hallways, how many of those are anxious these days in the face of the craziness that we've just been through? And by the way, everybody, it's only going to get worse. It's not going to, there's no normal to go back to. Oh, if things would only go back to normal. There is no normal. This is it. Get used to it. What do you think, Jason?
And I think that composure of any leader, just being forthright and upfront with the situations, what goes into the situations, the timelines of those situations, and very, very clear. I mean, employees today, one of the things that they ask for is expectations, right? Yeah. If a leader really is clear about what is expected of people, by when, how, right? It takes that composure to a new level, right? Yep. Now you're leading.
Yep. Exactly. So, and, clearly everybody, there are a lot of questions, higher order questions that you have to raise your game to in the outer world, right? Strategies and systems and organizations, but also equally in the inner world, inside of you, the inner universe, the inner journey of your leadership, of your composure, of your presence, of your self-awareness, of your emotional intelligence. I'm involved deeply, Jason, as you know, in a whole new body of work these days called positive intelligence, or PQ, not IQ, not EQ, but PQ. And what I'm really loving about it is that it really drills deep into this concept of saboteurs that we all have. And if we're not careful, we are self-sabotaging ourselves. And if we can just answer a question at a higher order place with ourselves, with a new higher order answer, to get a little bit clearer about what are those saboteurs that we have more than others, and how can we self-coach ourselves in the moment to recenter, to get present again, and to have access to the opposite, which is the sage powers, the ability to empathize, the ability to navigate, the ability to innovate, and those kinds of things. And it's a deep body of work which I'm really enjoying, and I think there's a higher order question for all leaders here to answer at a new level, which is how do you go on that inner journey? Because all this outer stuff that we talk about is really hard unless you go on that inner journey simultaneously. Jason, your thoughts on that?
The thing to remember here, Mike, is both of those roles. Yeah, both of those individuals have the same level of influence within your organization. That's what we deal with when we're working with culture.
Yeah.
Right. You've got both of those roles, and that negativity can have a negative impact on your culture as fast as positivity can drive your culture up.
Yeah. And we're all a mixed bag of both simultaneously, everybody. And so I think what Jason is saying is, how do we move the needle into the positive, away out of the negative? Don't create little moments of negative. Obviously, there are going to be some. When they happen, how do you mitigate them? How do you apologize for them? How do you eat your words with the humility and vulnerability and authenticity and transparency that Jason talked about earlier? And then in particular, how can you compound and accumulate more positive moments of truth? And it's like a balance sheet, right? It's like, assets and liabilities. If you can have more assets than you got liabilities, then the future has good things in store.
Yeah, and I said it the other day, and I'll kind of close up with this in my final thoughts for today. As leaders, our professional lives, our work lives, our personal lives, our lives in general, they're complicated, they're complex, and they're chaotic.
Yeah.
And until we as a leader get really comfortable with those three components, though our lives won't become clear.
Yeah. And there's a whole nother podcast that we could do, everybody, which perhaps we should, about the difference between something being complex and something being complicated. Because actually, when you tease that apart, those are two overlapping but quite different things.
Correct.
And often what we do wrong is we tackle a complex problem with a complicated solution that doesn't work. And so there's another, and then as a result, we end up in chaos, disorganized chaos, not organized chaos. So there's another realm there. And the last thing that comes up for me, Jason, is, and you've heard me talk about this before, is all of these new level questions are being asked of leaders at the new level. They need new answers. And not least of all, everybody, I suggest to you that next level questions are being asked at the very top of a business, in the C-suite, with the CEO, of course, and with the board. And the board of advisors, and what role does the board play in future-proofing the business? And there was a great article that I saw only the other day out of my alma mater business school, London Business School, where I was for a couple of years doing my MBA. And I forget the exact title, but it was basically talking about how boards are reinventing themselves to be much more part of the future-proofing process of a business in the face of craziness, in the face of chaos, in the face of turbulence, in the face of all these big issues. How can the board raise its game to be part of the solution, not part of the problem, which, if you're not careful, boards can easily become, because they're so mired in regulation and risk and compliance and all of that kind of stuff. They're not having all the conversation flows that they need to be about everything else. So there you have it, everybody. I know you gave your final thoughts already, Jason, but have you got any final thoughts for our listeners?
Keep your organization's future leadership in your line of sight. Right. It's more about survival and sustainment. It's about adapting and growth. I mean, as a business owner, entrepreneur, executive, C-suite, make sure you're focused on your future leadership.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it. And everybody, it's a never-ending journey. You will never arrive. You will never be done. It's just a constant quest to keep raising your game onwards and upwards to the next level. There we have it, everybody. What does it take for you to lead differently? What are the new demands upon you as a leader? Hope you had a good thought process following us along there. We missed Leo today. We always do when he's not here, but I'm sure he'll be with us next time, hopefully. Join us again, everybody, for the next One Advantage podcast. We'll see you there.
Thanks for listening to the One Advantage podcast. If you liked this episode, please consider helping us by rating us wherever you listen, spreading the word, having us as a guest on your podcast or webinar, and mentioning us in social media. Find us at the One Advantage podcast, where you can get more information about us and this episode. Thanks again for listening, and we look forward to more great episodes to come.